Hello everyone, this video will go through the story of GTA 4, the Ballad of Gay Tony. Luis Lopez is being held hostage at Bank of Liberty during a robbery involving Nico Bellic and McGreary brothers. A local gun club member lying next to him shoots and kills one of the robbers and is then killed by the McGreary brothers in retaliation. In the aftermath of the robbery, Luis is being questioned by the police about the incident before proceeding to Gay Tony's loft. Tony is a famous entrepreneur of the town who owns two nightclubs, Maisonette 9 and Hercules, and Luis is his close friend and business partner who mainly helps to deal with the security issues. Just as they chat, Rocco Pelosi, a senior Ancelotti mobster, and his accomplice Vance enter the loft and collect Tony's club income for the week as interest repayment on an outstanding loan. Tony then discusses with Luis his dire financial situation with his two clubs. In an attempt to curry favor with Rocco, Tony and Luis go to Chinatown to negotiate a deal with a senior triad. The negotiations with triad soon turn awry, and Luis protects Tony as they escape Chinatown. Luis visits his mother, who also has financial issues. A loan shark, Santo, often shows up in her house, threatening to destroy her property if she does not pay debt. Luis makes a deal with Santo by attending an underground fistfight and diving in the final round, which can help Santo to make profit. Then Santo cancels his mother's debt. When Luis revisits his mother, he finds his childhood friends, Enrique and Armando there. Luis' mother does not approve of his lifestyle and would like him to attend college. Luis shirks and leaves with his friends. Enrique and Armando are heavily involved with narcotic distribution trade. Luis escorts them to a trading site, but they are ambushed by LCPD. Luis fights against the police and leads his friends to safety. However, his friends don't quit, as some days later, Luis again helps them in a gunfight with some gangsters in the dark for procuring a shipment of heroin. During his business, Luis becomes acquainted with Yusuf Amir, a real estate developer in Liberty City. He has a wealthy and severe father who dislikes his indulgent lifestyle. Yusuf wants to franchise Tony's nightclub Maisonette 9 and hires Luis as a mercenary. His taste is weird though, and he asks Luis help him acquire several rare vehicles, including an experimental military-grade helicopter from some arms dealer on a yacht, an APC tank used by the National Office of Security Enforcement, and even a subway carriage. Luis also helps Yusuf avoid a trap on Rotterdam Tower, in which two of Yusuf's associates, Tahir and Amit, want to sell Yusuf to the government. After that, Yusuf and Luis develop a solid friendship. Meanwhile, Tony is headed in a downward spiral due to substance abuse, supplied by his boyfriend, Evan Moss. Luis, Tony, and Evan head to docks to buy $2 million worth of diamonds from a cook. During the exchange, members of the Lost attack and kill Evan and acquire the diamonds. After they escape the gunfight, Tony promises Luis that he will quit the substance abuse and introduces Luis to Maury Kibberts and his younger brother, Brucey. Maury is highly egotistical, constantly bullies and belittles Brucey, a source of irritation to Luis, who repeatedly stands up for his younger brother. Maury is a loan shark to Tony and promises to cancel Tony's debt if Luis can help him with some illegal affairs. Through entering triathlons and undertaking dangerous police chases, Luis eventually managed to cancel Tony's debt to Maury. After Brucey finally retaliates and punches Maury, he later shows up at Maisonette 9 to thank Luis. Tony and Luis meet Ray Bogren and his associate Timur at Maisonette 9, who offer Luis some work in exchange for financial help. Luis helps Bogren eliminate some corrupted federal agents and acquire the Liberty City Rampage hockey team by killing its owner, Ashvili. Gracie Ancelotti, a friend of Tony, gets Tony back on the drugs and is later kidnapped by unknown assailants. The Ancelottis establish that Gracie has been kidnapped because of the diamonds and are pointing the blame at Tony and Luis. Tony learns that diamonds are being exchanged at Libertonian and sends Luis to retrieve them. Luis sneaks in and hides outside the window. Just as Nico and Johnny are trading diamonds with Jewish mobsters, Louis ambushes the exchange, retrieves the diamonds from a Jewish mobster, and then escapes in a chopper borrowed from Yusuf. Grace's father, Giovanni Ancelotti, then orders Louis and Tony to trade the diamonds with kidnappers and get Gracie back. At the exchange, Tony and Louis find the kidnappers are Nico and Packy McCreary. Bogrin suddenly shows up and orders his men to attack them. Bogrin flees the scene, and amidst the chaos, the diamonds fall into the dump truck headed in the opposite direction. Louis, Tony, and Gracie escape in a speedboat. One day, Bogrin phones Louis, telling him to go to the roof of a building in Midtown. As Louis arrives, he is told to uncover a box next to him. What makes him astonished is that there's a severed head inside. Bogrin tells Louis that this is the head of a cook they previously traded diamonds from, and the diamonds originally belonged to Bogrin. He accuses the cook, Louis and Tony, of colluding to steal the diamonds and want to kill them all. Louis finds himself ambushed by the snipers on the rooftop, and he barely escapes alive. Because of being preoccupied with recent events, Tony refuses to pay his debts and the city closes down all of his clubs. Louis meets Rocco and Vance in the restrooms middle park, and they explain to him that he must kill Tony, or the Ancelottis and Russians will team up and kill Tony, Louis, and all of their friends and family. Louis shows up at Maisonette 9. Rocco and Vance are already there. They give Louis a gun to kill Tony, and Louis agrees. He contemplates before pointing a gun at Vance and shooting him in the head. Tony warns Louis not to shoot Rocco, as he is a made man. Rocco escapes, and the Russians show up, issuing a huge gunfight within the club. Tony blames Louis for contemplating to kill him and flees to his apartment to pack and move to the desert. Louis convinces Tony that he chose not to kill him because it is them against the world, and that they need to resolve their situation. For retaliation, Louis decides to venture to Firefly Island to ambush the Russian heroin exchange, telling Tony to hide out by Monoglobe in Meadows Park. In a fairground, Louis destroys the heroin and kills Timur, who mentions that Bogrin is fleeing the city by plane within 2 hours. After an opportune phone conversation, Yusuf shows up in a helicopter and eliminates the pursuing Russians while Louis drives to the airport. Upon Louis' arrival, Bogrin's jet is about to take off, and Louis chases on his bike. Louis manages to board the plane and kills all of the henchmen on board. A vengeful Bogrin emerges from cockpit, holding a grenade, threatening destruction to both of them if Louis kills him. Louis takes the risk and shoots Bogrin, who drops the grenade, causing it to explode. Louis parachutes out of the burning wreckage of the plane to safety and heads to Meadows Park where Tony is waiting. After landing, Louis comes across a street dweller and bumps him into a heap of garbage. Louis leaves in a hurry and misses an odd coincidence. The street dweller notices an exquisite pouch in the garbage. After he picks it up, he finds diamonds in it, which is exactly what he traded Gracie with, and Nico has lost. Tony is sitting on a bench, relieved when seeing Louis showing up. Yusuf also appears. Tony and Louis tell Yusuf that they won't franchise the clubs since they prefer to keep it a family business, and the three leave the park together.